Let's talk about, let's start with supervillain movies. Now, the news cycle has brought us, yes.
What hath it wrought?
It hath wrought, Roth. We have 3 upcoming movies, comic book movies, that will feature, so revolve around, if you will, supervillains. We have,
which is crazy because
well, yeah. Let me tell the people at home
tell
what
the
the
people.
3 are.
Talk.
We have Venom Carnage.
Preach.
We have the Sinister Six. Now y'all knew about those 2, but now we have Suicide Squad. DC getting in on that action, and we don't know who the lineup's going to be yet, but 3 supervillain movies. And I ask the panel, which supervillain movie are you most excited for? Roth.
Venom.
Really?
Venom.
Venom.
Why is that?
Well, and it's funny because I only say that because I think I have more information about it, you know, where I know that Drew Goddard is attached, and I like him. I think he's a good writer and a fine director. So that sort of has me probably the most intrigued. I like that it's focused, although it's Venom Carnage. I was like, I like that it's focused on one character, but it's actually 2. But I like that it's a little... I think ensemble movies can be great. Guardians is great. There's certainly plenty of great ensemble movies, but generally speaking, for introductions, I like it to focus on 1 or 2 characters.
I think the thing that is probably the best thing about Venom Carnage is that it's easy to understand how Venom could be a hero in a story about Carnage. Like the other ones, I'm struggling to think, like, how are you going to portray this? Are they going to be anti-heroes? I mean, they're villains, and, like, you know, the old adage is that nobody considers themselves a villain, so villains are in the eye of the beholder, really. But
although you have to wonder how some people don't. You know, like if you're Ted Bundy, or you're like, I'm a pretty good guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that whole thing where I think certain people know what they are, but they don't care or can't control it. But for these superhero or supervillain movies, I think the interesting question is, how do you make them not just villainous? Like, what do you put them against to make it a conflict where people aren't just going to the movie theater to watch evil people do evil things?
Right. And I mean, I think that is the key, is that I just feel like I get what Venom Carnage is going to be and what, you know, their relationship is going to be. And I don't think that Venom is going to be just a hero. I think he'll be probably hopefully, an interesting and complex character who's like forced into the heroic position because Carnage is so bad.
Right.
But it depends on who's ultimately attached to Suicide Squad. You know, we need more information.
Right.
Yeah.
So which one are you excited for, Chris?
I'm on premise alone. I think I'm most excited for Suicide Squad, and then sort of for there's a bunch of question marks there, but there is the potential that we'll see Harley Quinn on the big screen,
which will tip the scales maybe.
And I think that is actually. I think that's actually the reason for that movie. I think DC wants to get to a place where they can make a Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, that character is so popular. You go into Hot Topic and it's like, oh my God, Harley Quinn exploded all over the place. So you know they want to be in the Harley Quinn business. So I would be really, really shocked if they announced that lineup of villains and she wasn't in it.
She's not going to show up in Arrow, though. I mean, I don't know. So which doesn't.
Well, maybe that's good evidence that.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately irrelevant because they're not tying them together.
But Jeff Johns does run both the film and TV kind of. He's kind of the conduit between DC and the film and TV division. So I'm sure he's probably trying to say, well, if we put that there, then it might not fit with what we want to do on the movie side. So
there's still, like ultimately they're building it somewhat. I mean, I know it seems really willy-nilly, but it seems like they're building it somewhat carefully in that they're not necessarily going to have certain characters on screen at the same time. Now, we're kind of wondering what they might do with Flash.
Right.
That's a big question mark because he's leading the show, and then he could potentially show up in Justice League. Right. So
now, I would say that if it's announced that Harley Quinn is going to be in it, if it looks like that's going to be a driving force and they are going towards a Harley Quinn movie, and that the team attached looks really exciting, that would tip the scales for me, and I would be the most excited for Suicide Squad.
I'm personally most excited for Suicide Squad just because I think it's an interesting concept. It's the Dirty Dozen, and it's got supervillains, and I like Deadshot. and I think Harley Quinn would be an interesting character. It's one way to bring the Joker back to screen, if you will, without living in the shadow of Heath Ledger necessarily.
But then in that interpretation, do you reference the Joker, and how do you do it?
Right.
Well, what if, I guess they could get really meta. Maybe it's just some kid that's watched Dark Knight a bunch of times, so that'd probably be pretty awful.
I think you maybe don't want to do that because
I think you might
want the possibility. I think that Batman's out there in the world.
Now, I think it's kind of funny how none of us seem to be that excited for Sinister Six.
I would have been really excited for Sinister Six before I saw Spider-Man 2.
Right.
I would have been really excited for it. But I think the way they set it up in that movie was kind of, I don't know. I'm not feeling a lot of those guys, you know?
I mean, I have my doubts, to be honest, about... I have my doubts about that entire franchise and everything that's going on over there. And again, the only reason I really, tip the scales to Venom is because of Drew Goddard.
Yeah.
And because not only did I really like Cabin in the Woods, but he worked on Buffy and he worked on, to me, he's written some great episodes of television that I love. He wrote a horror movie that I think is really fun and I really like. And I think he's got an imaginative, fresh approach to things that I'm excited to see brought to the comic book genre because we do want to see different things. But yes, on premise, Suicide Squads could be cool if it's done like that. If it's done like The Dirty Dozen. If it's done like, we're not apologizing for them being villains. We're embracing the fact that these are criminals, rampant, rampaging, crazy criminals. And if you have that energy behind it and Harley Quinn.
And I should say that David Ayer is the director that they want for it.
That's who they want, right?
He did End of Watch, and he just did Sabotage, the Schwarzenegger movie, which I feel like gives you a good sense of why they want him for that movie. Yeah. It's a team movie. He's also got Fury coming up, another team movie, and very gritty, dark, sardonic wit to it. I'm talking about Sabotage, and you can kind of see how he can do a movie full of anti-heroes who are, in there to get down and dirty and kill a lot of people and then get out.
When he is for sure attached, that project jumps way high on the list, I think, because if they do it that way, you can see how villains could be, ambiguous or good, or, here's the thing I'll throw out to the group.
And he'll get some cool actors for it then too.
True. I think it also applies to Sinister Six. It's like if you look at the Avengers, it's a bunch of these guys. Like Hulk is not really a hero. Tony Stark is just kind of a hero by default. So it's like the Avengers are not like all, super do-gooders, except for Captain America, and they play off of that a little bit. So it's like
Black Widow certainly.
You can understand a group of people coming together to sort of save something bigger than them, save the world or something like that, even if they're not totally 100% good.
All right, so we have 2 votes for Suicide Squad, 1 vote for Venom Carnage.
1 vote for Venom Carnage with the caveat that if David Ayers gets attached and it's Harley Quinn,
this is like a political convention thing where you'll trade your delegates if the other guy drops.
I'll tell you one more thing I like about Drew Goddard to bring it back to Avengers. He was in that Joss Whedon world.
Yes.
So he kind of, he's studied, well, I don't know what studied, but they came up and together and did some stuff, and I think he understands that kind of building. So
I think so too.
His take on Venom, even though I don't really like the Venom character that much, I think his take on Venom is interesting to me.
That is the #1 thing that makes me excited for that project. But again, the idea of I want to see a heist, I want to see a big crime, I want to see it be like a crime movie, but with supervillains. You know what I mean? Where it's around one big heist and they're going after it.
Like Tower Heist.
I actually would. I would like
maybe
to.
Maybe not. Maybe more like Heat.
I actually would like to maybe see a movie where they aren't apologetic and they maybe aren't necessarily good, but they're trying to do something like a heist or something.
An Ocean's 11 type
just to get away with it.
Yeah. I think that would be all right. Now I'm changing my vote.
Now it's a caper.
Now I'm changing my vote to Suicide Squad.
All right.
So if it's the movie that we pitched.
All right, guys. Well, those are our picks then for. What supervillain movie we're most excited for? We're going to be doing a poll for this as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, go to the article at ign.com/movies. And you will be able to vote for your supervillain movie you're most excited for.
And you can agree or disagree.
That pitch fell apart in the end. It was like,
just sort of like the
thing
pitch
that you
want to
do.
Sinister Six.
Or you can you can also leave in comments your pitch
Right.
for what kind of Suicide Squad you want to see.
Well, there we go.